Okay. Let's get this done. All right. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, and specifically ladies, I wanted to talk to you about what my next upcoming event is on May 17th, and it's called Triangulation. Oh, no, the book is Triangulation, but my master class is Toxic Interference. And what I've been doing is sharing some examples of triangulation because a lot of people have not heard of triangulation. Triangulation is a behavior that occurs as a result of the drama triangle. That's that dysfunctional model of behavior created by Dr. Stephen Cartman back in 1968. And it really helps to identify the toxic behavior, the dysfunctional behavior that people exhibit in our lives. And a lot of times we don't know where it's coming from. Well, whether we understand where it's coming from or not, we have to make sure that we protect ourselves to make sure that we're not being pulled into their drama, other people's drama, or I should say the drama triangle. So what I've been doing is last week is sharing some examples of triangulation. A couple of examples I've given is when basically triangulation is when two people are in a conflict and they invite someone else to be a part of that conflict. Sometimes people do it knowingly, sometimes they do it unknowingly. And sometimes people get stuck in that drama, not even realize that they've been pulled into it. And what happens is when we get pulled into it, we find ourselves spiraling into chaos. And that chaos is not even ours to spiral into, it's somebody else's. So, in my book, my most recent book, Triangulation: How to Break Free from Toxic Relationships, I help to break down the drama triangle and how you can experience that, or how you do experience that in your life, especially if you're dealing with people that are dysfunctional. If you've experienced dysfunction in your life in one form or another, you may have experienced it, or someone else in your life has experienced it, and it's doing what I call creating residual effects, negative effects that are residual, that are going on, and then that then creates collateral damage. And that collateral damage is the damage that's done because of your participation, willingly or unwillingly, in someone else's drama. So what happens is there's a lot of toxicity going on. And don't you want to make sure that you're not involved in someone else's toxicity? Because what happens is then you have created what we call toxic interference. So my master class that I'm holding in Atlanta, well, in the Marietta area of Atlanta next Saturday, May 17th, is an opportunity for you to attend this master class and learn firsthand live how toxic interference is impacting your life and interrupting the things that you really want to do. So I talked about that. I talked about what happens when two people are in conflict, they draw someone else in. Not only the responsibility of the person they're drawing in, but it's also the responsibility of the person that's drawing someone in to be aware of what they're doing. And you know what? A lot of times the people that are pulling you in, they know what they're doing. It's called manipulation, and they've been doing it for quite some time. But how do you get out of it? That's what I talk about in my book, Triangulation. And it's also what I'm going to be breaking down within my masterclass in Atlanta on May 17th, which is called Toxic Interference. So if you want to get some tickets for that, make sure you click the link in the description below, because those tickets are going fast. And here's the deal. If you're in the Atlanta area, or if you know someone in the Atlanta area that could really benefit from this, because they've been struggling for a while, trying to figure out how to deal with other people, how to prevent other people from interrupting the goals that they have and pursuing those goals. Listen, I'm a boundaries coach. And what I do is I help women to set boundaries in the areas of life that truly matter. And your biggest accomplishment when it comes to dealing with toxic people is to set the right boundaries. I'm talking the healthy ones, not the ones that are based on knee-jerk reactions, but based on long thought out process that helps you to do that. And that's what I help you to do. But in the meantime, let me give you this example that I wanted to share. And you know what? These are examples that came right from the Bible. Since the beginning of time, there has been triangulation. You just didn't know what it was called. So let me give you some examples. So this will really help you to hone in on what triangulation means. And as you do that, you'll start to think about how triangulation may be playing out in your life. So listen. We can talk about the very beginning. And all these examples can be found in Genesis in your Bible. That is the first book of the Bible, right? So the first thing you want to listen to is Adam and Eve. So Adam and Eve were not in conflict with anyone. God placed them on this earth to be joyful, to be at peace, to be in the Garden of Eden, and they were doing great. But then guess what happened? The serpent, you're right, that serpent came along and caused conflict. The serpent came in and started to do one of the positions, to take on one of the positions within the drama triangle. And you're going to learn about that in my book and also in my master class. But he took on one of the roles. And because of that, he took on that role with Eve, right? Eve had an opportunity to make a decision. She had a choice. But what did Eve do? She triangulated. She went and brought in Adam, right? Adam comes in. Now there's three people in that situation. And it was a conflict because it was a decision that had to be made. If Eve had not gone to Adam, it would not have been a triangulation. If Eve had just done what the serpent said, it would have surely been drama triangle. But that is your first example of triangulation, because you had two people that were in a conversation, in a conflict, actually, and then Eve brought in Adam. So trust, I am not blaming Eve for what happened in the Garden of Eden. I'm just giving you that very first example of what triangulation looks like. That's your very first example in the Bible. And now, what do you think is another one? I know if you've gone through the Bible, you have come up with some examples of triangulation, but let me help you just one bit further. The next one is when Sarah, remember Sarah and Abraham? Sarai and Abram at first, and their names were changed, but Abraham and Sarah were going to have a baby, right? God promised, not Jesus, God promised Abraham a child. And Sarah didn't believe. Actually, when Jesus came and represented in front of Sarah, Sarah actually laughed because she didn't believe at her age, in her 90s, that she could possibly have a child, because her womb was closed, as what she thought. But we know how God works, right? Well, Sarah and Abraham were promised a child, but somebody just couldn't wait. Who was that? That was Sarah. So, what did Sarah do? This was a situation between Sarah and Abraham, right? God was also involved, but we're not including him in the drama. When we look at how drama is created, Sarah was very upset because she didn't believe that God was going to come through on that promise. So she had a conversation with Abraham. And what did they decide to do as a result of not receiving that promise? Because they were impatient and they didn't trust God to do it. They called in somebody else. Who did they call in? They called in Hagar. This was the woman that was taking care of was taking care of Sarah, right? So they thought, well, you know what? We won't wait on God. We'll go ahead and let Hagar go ahead and bed Abraham so that they could have a child. That's your second example of triangulation. And if you know the Bible, you know what happened after this. All because someone else was brought in, having no idea what the results were going to be. So if you look at Ishmael, right? You look at Ishmael, you look at Hagar, look at where they ended up going, and look how God had to come into their lives because they were innocent in all this. But that is your second example of triangulation, where two people are having a discussion, a conflict, and they bring in someone else, and that was Hagar. That is your second example. And here's the third example I want to give you. Now, if you know Rebecca in the Bible, right? Rebecca was married to Jacob. These are the offspring of Abraham and Sarah. Well, if you know anything about Rebecca, you know that she was pretty conniving, because she knew that Esau was the one that was the firstborn that was supposed to get the blessing from Abraham, not from Abraham, but from Jacob, right? But Jacob was ill. Even though they had twin brothers, they had Esau and what was the other one's name? Esau and Jacob, right? Isaac. I'm sorry. Isaac was the one that was ill, and they had the boys. They had Esau and Jacob, right? So Esau was the firstborn, and he was supposed to have the birthright. But wouldn't you know, Rebecca got involved, right? This is triangulation. Rebecca got involved in what Isaac was doing and blessing his son, and had her son Jacob put skin, animal skin, on his arms, so that when his father Isaac touched him, who had gone blind, would think that it was his firstborn son, and that was Esau. So consequently, you know what happened? He went ahead and Jacob followed through with what his mom, Rebecca, wanted him to do, because, first, that's a no-no. Rebecca favored her one son instead of the other. And so she wanted him to have the first birthright, the blessing. So I know I'm going all over the place when it comes to the biblical verbiage and things that I'm saying, but you get the meaning of what I'm saying. Here's the deal. I'm trying to share with you different explanations or different examples of how triangulation started in the Bible. So those three biblical examples will help to give you an idea of how triangulation plays out in our everyday lives. And if you know the word, the Bible, the Bible, which happens to be our basic instructions before leaving earth, you know that every instruction for everything that we go through in life, every challenge, our answers are found in the word. But you also know that things are repeated all the time throughout history. So if you think about triangulation, you think about how it happened in the beginning. What makes you think that it doesn't happen now? But the thing about it is that we get to see how it played out. So when we see how it played out in these three situations, we know that there's something that needs to be done to make sure that we prevent triangulation from occurring in our lives, so it doesn't change the outcome for where it is that we want to go. We can be held back so much from triangulation. And if we aren't careful, if we don't recognize the triangulation that happens in our lives, then most chances are we're going to end up not getting to the place where we want to go, not doing the things we want to do. We're going to lose our peace. We're going to lose our joy. And we're going to lose our hope for the future, for the things that we want to do. And you know what? Most people don't even recognize it. They don't. I had a situation this past weekend where I went home and someone in my family actually tried to pull me into the drama triangle, into triangulation. There was a situation where I was trying to contact someone, and this person said to me, "Well, did you find out why that person didn't do this for me?" Okay, can you see that? Can you see how they're trying to pull me into something between two other people? Right? So, what did I do? I acknowledged it, I recognized it right away, and I decided to set a boundary. How did I do that? I decided, first of all, that I was not going to participate in someone else's drama. I was going to stay in my lane. So what did I do? I then did an external boundary, and I communicated that if there's something that you want to know that someone else did or didn't do, it's best for you to contact that person, not me, because I'm not going to get in the middle. Now, that was a boundary. Wasn't that easy? Now, whether or not that person agrees with you or not, that wanted to pull you in, it truly doesn't matter. You know that you've set a healthy boundary, because what is best for you. All this is going to be explained, and I'm going to help you to recognize the toxic behavior, the toxic interference, and the drama triangle in your life. And here's the special thing about this. Well, I've got seats going fast on this. The one thing you want to know, or you need to know, is that my book is included in your ticket price. So not only do you get a chance to read the book, but you also get a chance firsthand to find out how to recognize the toxic behavior, the toxic interference in your life, and begin to find out the steps that you need to take to ensure that no one is pulling you into their drama, you're not being triangulated, and you are not letting their toxicity interfere in your life. That sounds like a win-win to me. So click the link in the description below if you are in the Atlanta area. And if you've got a friend that you want to bring with you, make it a girls' night. Bring them with you. We're going to have light food. We're going to have vendors there. They're going to make some opportunities for you. We're going to have music. We're going to have fun. And you are going to learn. Yes, you're going to learn. You're going to grow. you're going to have such a higher level of self-awareness that you're going to be so confident and courageous in going out there and making sure that you get to do whatever you need to do, exactly what you need to do, without any toxic interference. So I want to go ahead and sign out now, but I just want to let you know that. Make sure, if you are interested in being a part of this masterclass and you're in the Atlanta area and Marietta in particular, then go ahead and click the link and register for this event. I look forward to seeing you there. If you just want to get the book, that's fine too. I'll go ahead and put the link in there. But you really want to have the two, because it's amazing what happens when you couple the two together, because it really gives you everything you need to make sure that no one is pulling you in to their drama. See what my shirt says? I don't know if it's backwards or not, but I am all about that drama-free life. And I hope you are too. And if you haven't got there yet, I know I have, let me help you to get there. This is Pamela Bird, your boundaries coach. Let's talk boundaries, shall we? Take care. I'm going to hang up. Okay, bye.